This is a Muscle Cat Media production.
What's up, everybody? Baseball expats back and live from Ireland again, only it's a different county. I believe last time that we spoke, I was in County Wexford, and I'm now in County Mayo by way of County Antrim, which is a place I was today at the British Open practice round. It's been a lot of traveling, not only within Ireland, but sort of across several different countries for me in the last 6 weeks. So if I say anything in the next half hour that is absurd, just give me a little bit of leeway. But anyways, Eric, it's good to see your face, my friend.
What'd you think of the British Open? I have been lucky enough to attend a British Open at Royal St. Anne in Lytham. I have been lucky enough to attend a U.S. Open, a Canadian Open, a few other golf tournaments along the way. But what did you think? I mean, just some major tennises. I'm getting to a point with this of me attending majors. But what did you think of the British Open?
Well, I guess it's kind of a hard one to answer because it's Monday practice day, right? So in some ways, it's one of the best days to go because it's not as crowded. So you can go to the merch lines are shorter. The line for a beer is shorter. You get to probably get up close and personal with guys more than what you would, say on the actual tournament day or probably even Wednesday. You're able to get closer. So we were basically just able to walk up to Brooks Koepka today while he was playing his practice round. He was talking to his wife, who was walking his child along the first tee box after he hit his shot, right? So everything's pretty casual. Even for a major, it was fairly casual. The thing that stood out for me the most, and I think we don't see this much in baseball, maybe we have in recent years whenever MLB have kind of done these pop-up games in various places, where the drop-in infrastructure for major events in golf will never cease to amaze me, right? So 18 months ago, I was at Royal Portrush just on a road trip with my family after Claire and I got married because my dad wanted to see it. I mean, that's kind of what created this dream of him of going to see the British Open. He's having a hip replacement, so he's in the United States right now, which is why I was able to score the tickets. Whenever you're there and there's no infrastructure, it is just a field. I mean, there's the clubhouse is tiny. It sits on the water. There's really nothing untoward about it. I mean, if you appreciate links golf, it is a masterpiece to look at, and you can look at it and say there's absolutely no chance a guy like me is shooting anywhere close to double figures. A guy like yourself, a seasoned 4 handicap like Eric Volnar, probably could go pretty well around Royal Portrush. But I think that as I was walking around and you see all the infrastructure, it almost feels as though you're in a stadium environment that it has been there forever. And as you're walking around, you're like, somebody was finishing putting this together like 2 days ago, right? So it always, and the tennis tournaments are kind of the same. I know you alluded to that. I mean, I've worked the Australian Open before. I mean, obviously it's at a facility that is purpose built for that, but you still see a lot of pop-up things around the grounds. So I was, while the golf was cool, being there, getting to see some of the history, getting to see some of the guys in sort of a more casual environment was very cool. Just walking around and sort of appreciating the marvel that is getting a facility like that, which again is just an expansive load of acreage on the water in some of the most testing conditions in the world to look like a world-class facility, and it did.
I think the best part is exactly, you nailed it on the head with the best part of majors. It's going to the practice rounds where you can go and see the best players in the world, but you can also scout the course yourself and you can walk it. You can see what hole 1 is, see what the infrastructure is. Imagine what it would be like if you were swinging on that spot, and then you can go home. And when you watch this tournament on TV and they say, oh, let's go to hole 16, you can say, damn, I was at hole 16. Like, I know exactly what that looks like. I always tell people this when they're going to their first majors, like, man, like, make sure you go to a practice round because it's still fun, but it's a better experience going earlier before it starts and then just watching it at home. Like, if you're committed to the major week, just honestly go to 2 practice rounds, go to the first half of day 1 and watch the rest at home. And you're going to have an awesome experience. However, I will say the best golf event and maybe one of the best sports events I have been to isn't a major at all. In fact, it's Live Golf in Adelaide, which I've been lucky enough to go to 5 or 6 rounds over the last 3 years. Now that is a golf tournament done right for the fans, right? Like that is one where you can get a good balance of everything you want from being in a crowd and a vibe. Because let's be real, on a major Thursday and you want to watch Rory McIlroy, good luck. You are going to be 15 rows deep. You're going to see his shoe as he walks on by. And if you can say you saw where his ball went, you are lying to me. Whereas at Live, you could get part of that big crowd atmosphere. You could park at a hole, or you could follow a guy for a hole back 9, like a Phil Mickelson, like a Bryson DeChambeau, like a Brooks Koepka, and you could watch with them and stand a meter away from them as they're playing their golf round, and there's music playing, and there's concerts after, and you're close to the city, and it's beautiful outside because it's Australia. So yeah, I'm gonna go a bit off the wall there, and I've told a few Canadians this, and they look at me in disgust when I even mentioned Live. But yeah, that's what I think.
And I mentioned it tongue in cheek, and maybe I hadn't thought about it just then until I blurted it out. But I do wonder if Major League Baseball, whenever they were doing these pop-up events that they've done in random places, I mean, they've had a game on a military base, right? They've had obviously like the Field of Dreams game where they have to bump in so much infrastructure. Probably the Little League game, maybe not so much, but to some extent, they're having that game at Bristol Motor Speedway this year.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of these like drop-in facilities that they have to create. Obviously, the field is one thing entirely differently, but the infrastructure around it. I almost wonder if Major League Baseball probably has, and we can probably find this out pretty easily, make a couple of phone calls, has actually poached people from these golf tournaments. Because you want to talk about being able to turn a field of nothingness, essentially a parking lot. I mean, I don't want to shit on Royal Portrush. It's not a parking lot. It's a beautiful golf course. But to be able to have the wherewithal to look at that facility and go, right, this is how we're going to basically logistically get 200,000 people through the door in 5 days and make it seem like this facility has existed since the beginning of time. It truly is exceptional. And you're right. I mean, look, if we had tickets to go to the actual Open, either, Thursday through Sunday, we would have, 100%, we would have done it. And like I said, we're in Mayo today. And so, I mean, it's about a 3.5 hour drive to Portrush, and I came back to Mayo. So we were on the road for 7 hours. You want to be sure that you have an enjoyable time if you're going to be on the road 7 hours, sort of round trip. But yeah, no, I'm super glad that we did it. It was a great experience. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait to watch the tournament on television with a cold one and not fight those 200,000 people this weekend.
Yeah, you're gonna have a good time. You're gonna look at that course on a whole new perspective. It's gonna be a fun one for you. Should we talk some baseball?
Yeah, let's do it. The Cardinals have, as you and I had this discussion comparing them and a certain rugby league team, which we won't get into and bore the people with, but they are just finding new ways to A, self-sabotage, and B, slowly wind me back in after the self-sabotage. But I think that's part of being a baseball fan, right?
You need to chill the hell out, man. I mean, the Cardinals.
It's easy for you to say now that the Jays are on the top of the AL East.
No, it's easy for me to say because if I told you 6 months ago or 4 months ago in March before the season started, and I said, hey, Rolsey, guess what? The Cardinals, they are going to be 51-46, 5 games above 500 at the All-Star break, and they're only going to be a half game out of a wild card spot, you'd be like, damn, this is a pretty good season. This is pretty exciting. Like, look, they're still on their upswing. They're still getting better. They're right in the mix. They're above teams. They're half a game back of the Giants. They're better than the Cardinals. They're better than the Reds, who were kind of that team that was in the same kind of caliber of them at the beginning of the year as what could they be. They're better than the Braves. They're right in the mix. They're right there, dude, and they're probably a pitcher away. They play great at home. They struggle a little bit on the road. Like, this is better than what you expected to be. This is better than what the market line expected them to be. I think you just got to relax and enjoy the ride, man.
No, I think so. I think, like, a helicopter view, you're 100% right, but when you know how close they've been, and like their record in one-run games is atrocious. Like they lost 2 one-run games to Atlanta and had to come from behind to win a one-run game last night or yesterday afternoon. I think because they're so much farther along offensively, than I think everybody expected that they would be at this point. They knew this team was going to be young. They tried to deal Arenado because they didn't really necessarily see the point. He's been clutch at times. I think the offense has come around and played well, except for those 3 consecutive games that they got shut out by the Pirates. Let's just put that to the side. But there's just so many glaring issues with their pitching staff, and it's not just the starting rotation. I mean, the bullpen blew 2 of those games against Atlanta in the lead up to the All-Star break. I mean, you take 2 of 3 in that series after taking 2 or 3 midweek, you go into the All-Star break, you're going, all right, there's a legitimate chance we can make a run at this. I think the thing that scares me the most is when you have a team like St. Louis that is in the spot that they are in, they can go one of 2 very different ways at the trade deadline, right? I don't think they're going to lean all in for a wild card spot, which means that we may have seen the best of the St. Louis Cardinals in 2025, and they're not going to get any better. So that's kind of what scares me, is because I would almost rather them probably be at that point, maybe where the Brewers are, and then just say, hey, look, we don't need to make any crazy moves. This was supposed to be a chance for us to improve. Let's just roll with what we got. Maybe we get a wild card spot. Maybe we challenge for the Central. But, I think after the All-Star break, if they do maybe drop 2 or 3 series, we might see this team probably start to sell. Maybe they do move Arenado, whereas I would rather probably see them stay neutral because I don't think we expected them to make any sort of trade deadline moves at the beginning of the year. So you're right. It's a really weird spot to be in. But we've talked about it how many times? Like 3-4 months in the span of a baseball season is several lifetimes, right? So go back to the beginning of the year, a lot more now than what you knew at the beginning of the year. So yes, to say that if they were in this spot, if you had told me that 4 months ago, I'd be elated. But now knowing what I know and seeing what I've seen and seeing the progression of some of the players, you can't help but be a little bit frustrated. And
again,
I think that's fair.
Helicopter view. I don't think I've learned anything that significant about the St. Louis Cardinals this year. Like at the beginning of the year, we said that their starting pitching, their depth might struggle, and their bullpen might struggle, and it might cost them in some games. Like they are losing games in exactly the way we thought they would lose. If anything, they're a little bit better than I expected because they're 5 games over 500, and we thought they would literally be around 500. I think they stay pat. The only move they could make is get rid of Arenado, which would make sense because he'd be a big marquee name that a contender would probably love to have, and you can probably get something of value for him. I think they're just going to stay pat. I think they don't think they're going to buy, don't think they're going to sell. They got a really exciting group of young players that they'll let just keep playing. I think if anything they do buy, they maybe try to bring in another pitcher to try to shore that up, or just like another veteran bullpen arm, low risk, high cost. The Cardinals are the Cardinals, man. This is exactly who we thought they were, and it's playing out. They're like the Atlanta Braves. That's been a disappointing season. The Arizona Diamondbacks. That's been a disappointing season. The Boston Red Sox up until 10 days ago. That was a disappointing season. So I think that if you were to list your surprises and your disappointments, the St. Louis Cardinals would be on neither of those lists.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think they sort of sit in the middle, and they're kind of neutral. Like I know there's some international stuff that you want to get into, and we'll talk about it with Spoon next week. I think maybe we'll have a little bit better idea next week as sort of what's happening trade deadline wise. You talk about the Braves. Like Spoon said at the beginning of the year when I was like, well, maybe I back Acuna for the NL MVP, and he was like, maybe you should back him for the AL MVP because he thinks he's going to get traded, which sounded absurd 4 months ago. And now look where we are. And like the Ronald Acuna Jr.'s name is the one that keeps popping up. And he's so interesting for so many different reasons. I mean, let's save some of it for next week, I think, so we can bring Spoon in on this. But I even saw people saying, why not St. Louis? And when you consider how Jordan Walker's been up and down in right field, the amount of pitching prospects that the Cardinals had, and Ronnie's still got plenty of time left on that deal. So it was kind of interesting because it's like, you don't really want to sell all your prospects, but if one of those guys is a young right fielder, you can replace him with Ronald Acuna Jr. Maybe there is an arm that you can expend. Then all of a sudden you have a superstar, which, I mean, the Cardinals have Nolan Arenado, but let's face it, he's at the back end of his career. Maybe it does something for the franchise and has that little bit of spark. Look, there's tons of other guys that we can talk about as well. I think we save it for next week, but it's not a conversation that I expected we would be having even, a week or two ago.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think though, like surely he's going to go to a team that they, that can give probably more of an aggressive package, right? Like the most aggressive package, win now mode. I want a World Series.
The Padres are the ones that I think is probably the most exciting. Like if you had Fernando, Manny, and Ronnie on the same team, like, dude, I'm probably turning into a pseudo San Diego Padres fan if that happens. And I think a lot of other people probably are too.
I would agree with that. I still think AL would be more likely though. Like I feel like Atlanta would want to trade him, just get rid of him out of the conference. But you're 100% right. Like Padres would be that bill of like the aggressive team. But on the theme of aggressive, did you watch the MLB draft at all?
Yeah, I have been following it. I mean, obviously, we had sort of talked to Jonathan Mayo maybe a month or two ago now about kind of how hectic the top end of the draft could be, and I don't think it went the way anybody expected it to go in the top 5.
I made some notes on it as well as the things were kind of going on of things that surprised me. And I was expecting to get kind of into it like in the mid-first round, but it was literally the first overall pick that kind of surprised me. But it's interesting, right? The draft is changing, right? Like 4 members of the 2024 draft class are already in the major leagues and starting to find their own. In 2023 draft class, 2 of them are already all-stars and some of the best players in the year. Like Paul Skeens is the best pitcher in the NL, and Jacob Wilson is hitting like 323 and one of the best players and an all-star in the NL as well. So some of these guys that are being drafted could make impact sooner than we think. But the headlines and the popcorn sort of started popping on the first pick when the Nationals kind of went off the board. Like Eli Willits, shortstop, from Oklahoma. He's not totally off the board. Like he was ranked number 5 by MLB Pipeline. So it wasn't like it was like, who's this guy? But nobody really thought he would be number 1. And the kid is 17 years old. He's the 3rd youngest player in history to be drafted first overall, and the youngest since Ken Griffey Jr., by the way, which is a big comparison to. Obviously, they think he's got a lot of upside. That's what they're drafting him for, the high baseball IQ. He can play shortstop. He can play center field. But what was interesting here is the Nationals using the pick because they're going to save some money against their allocated money slot, the draft slot that they have. So the draft slot's 11.1 million this year. They're not going to have to pay him that signing bonus the same way. Andy's got that upside. That was crazy to me at number 1. And then number 2, Tyler Bremner goes number 2 overall, which was a little bit surprising as well because he was rated as low as like number 20 on some draft boards. And the Angels were just like, hey, we're going to go our own way. This dude can throw a 98-mile-per-hour fastball. He's got a good slider, good changeup by all the scouting reports. Again, another below slot deal for a guy that really was hot down the stretch playing at UC Santa Barbara. But yeah, that was what was surprising to me is that 2 teams go off the board and use draft slot money. But yeah, number 5 ranked overall player, Eli Willits, goes number 1. And according to MLB Pipeline, the number 18 overall pitcher goes like right near the top of the draft as well. That was crazy to me.
It's the draft is always funny because it's, teams will look at guys that they think they can develop because sometimes maybe guys just don't fit with, maybe your coaching staff or your philosophy and whatever that is. Talent is talent. But we're starting to see so much now that style and, upside also come into it because I think probably Cade Anderson and Liam Doyle are probably the 2 most big league arms right now. And those guys go, 3 and 5. And, if you're the 2 teams that get those 2 guys, you're going, hey, we might as well have had a number 1 overall pick. Because when we talked to Jonathan Mayo, this was even before the College World Series. When Cade Anderson just went bang, bang, right, for LSU and almost single-handedly won them a College World Series. So for a draft that I don't think got – and then oh, by the way, Ethan Holiday, the guy that was always going to go number 1, doesn't. And then just as Jonathan told us, there's no chance he was going to fall, below Colorado. They get the storybook pick of grabbing Holiday, and hopefully are able to develop him and maybe, turn that franchise around in 10 seasons. But for a draft that, didn't really have this high billing of really being deep or necessarily having a lot of high profile names, certainly has drawn some intrigue. And I think sort of post that first, day of the draft has probably created a lot more headlines than I think what most people were anticipating.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head because it went pretty predictable after those first couple picks, right? And then the other ones that were noteworthy, I have three other picks that were kind of noteworthy to me. Jays drafting JoJo Parker was pretty cool. This guy, a shortstop. Jays have kind of gone there a little bit. He was ranked number 9, so it's not like totally unpredictable. But I kind of liked it because he's got his twin brother Jacob, who was also in the draft as well. So it's kind of funny to see twins in the draft, and that's why I noted there. But another power hitting shortstop, and again Parker, that he's big, right? Like kind of the representative of this new generation of shortstops and infielders that need to mash as well too, and that's how they're being drafted. Aloy, how about him? He was drafted 31 overall, and he was ranked number 17 by MLB Pipeline. Like at some points, he won the Golden Spikes, Rolsey, and for your Arkansas Razorbacks, like I thought he was going to go top 10 potentially, and yeah, he ends up going with the Baltimore Orioles at number 31 overall, despite his huge year. Were you surprised to see Wahia Aloy drop so low?
Well, I think probably what happened with him is the inverse of what happened with Cade Anderson. I mean, you don't put so much stock in what a guy did in the college postseason with, the resume that he built and the season that he built in the regular season. I mean, like you said, he won the Golden Spikes Award based on what he did during the regular season. He definitely didn't win the Golden Spikes Award based on what he did in the postseason. He struggled mightily. And so, maybe if, by some strange, weird event, Arkansas didn't make the postseason and Wahiva Aloy was still the best player in the country, maybe potentially he does go a little bit higher. But I think potentially what people saw were maybe some weaknesses in his game. I mean, he made a terrible error in Arkansas's elimination game, which was, a ground ball double play that potentially could have ended that game and then sent Arkansas and LSU into basically a play-in to play Coastal Carolina in the final, right? So, I mean, those are the kind of things that scouts and teams that are drafting players look at is, I mean, he's probably a slightly above average shortstop, but I mean, that kind of decision making and plus struggling with the bat, teams get spooked. So, on one hand, yes, he probably didn't go as high as, many potentially thought he could, but then you're getting a pretty good guy at a comp pick at the 31 slot that was ranked, 17. I mean, we hear about players like that all the time that fall down the draft board, and next thing you know, 2-3 years later, there they are making all-star games, winning World Series and the lot.
I guess why I love the draft is just to take a look at where organizations view themselves in 3 years from now, because you're not drafting for today in the MLB draft generally, right? You're trying to implement a strategy that will pay off in a few years, and you can get a good snapshot of where an organization is at and how they go about their business. And I kind of alluded to that with the Willits pick at number 1 from the Nationals and Bremner pick at number 2. Two teams have struggled. They're lower down the list, and they've decided, you know what, we're going to go with a below market value draft pick, and we're going to pay them a little less money from what we would normally have to if we were going to go for a big college superstar like Cade Anderson. The Mariners, they go with Cade Anderson because he's the best player available, but he is a pitcher, and the Mariners have developed pitching great, and they seem to be aggressively going after pitchers in all of their drafts. The Aloy pick was interesting to me at 31 because he was the third college hitter that the Baltimore Orioles selected in the first round of that draft. So they didn't even go for pitching. They didn't go for any high school players. They went for college hitters. Then the Red Sox at number 87, they end up selecting Anthony Aonson. Now, he's from Louisiana State. He's another good player. He's a hard throwing player, but they ended up drafting 3 players who were projected to be top 45 picks, all of them pitchers, all of them after college. So the Boston Red Sox going after college arms. So what is that? I don't know what that tells you. I mean, you can kind of make some ideas, but obviously the Orioles are saying we want some guys that aren't out of high school, that have had 3 to 4 years of more seasoned at bats versus quality pitching, because maybe we want them to make an impact sooner rather than later. And the Red Sox picking 3 dudes that can throw the ball hard out of college as well, saying, you know what? Maybe we need a guy in the next couple years to be up here rather than a project out of high school that projects to have some potential like a Willits, but we need to see how they go. So it's really interesting for me to just kind of see how teams are viewing those opportunities.
Yeah, and I think the strategy around drafting players has changed mightily in the last sort of half decade to decade. With the ascendancy of college baseball and the quality that we're seeing coming out of the college game now is so much higher than what it was 10 years ago. Iron sharpens iron, right? The better the players are, the better the players get. That's just sort of the way it is. I mean, you don't see as many kids coming out of high school. Obviously, there's still a lot of them, but kids are incentivized to go to college now because they can get paid whenever they go to college. And it's better than going to play for a single A team in nowhere USA for 2 years potentially, right? Where you can get drafted and then maybe a la Travis Pisana essentially end up in double A by season's end. So you're not really wallowing around in the lower end of the minor leagues. So I think the fact that we're seeing players come out more, probably not big league ready, but mid-level minor league ready in the draft, and the draft is also smaller now because the minor league systems are smaller. So I think you're just getting a lot more quality as opposed to the draft just used to be about quantity. It seemed like it went for 2 weeks where it was just like with, the 8,473rd pick, so and so takes this guy, and it was just like that dude's never going to make it out of rookie ball, and even he knows it, but he's pursuing his dream of playing professional baseball. So I think all of those things sort of coming together, and they're not mutually exclusive. Well, I guess in a way they all sort of work together, and they can be mutually exclusive. But all those things working together, I think, has made the MLB draft more compelling, and I think MLB knows that because now they make it more of an event around All Star Weekend, which I also think is really cool. And it's clear that they know that it's getting more hype because these players are getting more. It used to be in the draft, it was like, okay, even the guy that was going 15th, nobody ever heard of. But because of college baseball's popularity and of all the work that the MLB pipeline guys are doing, and they start so far out with these lists, it almost becomes really compelling type television. It's never going to be the NFL draft. It's never going to be the NBA draft because there's just too many guys, and you're not going to see them play for your favorite team for another 2 or 3 years unless they're a frontline starting pitcher. But I really really like what's happened with the draft, and I think it's probably just a testament on where the game of baseball is at sort of you'd want to say amateur level, but the college players aren't really amateurs anymore, are they? But because the college game's gotten so good and so compelling, I think it's made draft storylines and the MLB draft a lot more compelling.
Yeah, and like I said, there's two guys from the 2023 draft drafted just 2 years ago that are already all stars. They're playing on All Star Weekend that were drafted in the first round. So
Which
the
is kind
impact
of unheard
is
of
there.
like 15 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's happening quicker than it feels like it has before. Just a couple quick Aussie notes that I have to throw in there. Two Australians were selected. Brent Iredale from Arkansas, also from Sydney. He was selected by the Pittsburgh Pirates. He becomes the seventh Australian player out of 28 minor league players who are on the Pittsburgh Pirates organization, which is crazy. So good for Brent Iredale to be selected there by the Pirates. Kalen Hampson selected by the Baltimore Orioles. Now, Hampson's an interesting one. He's from Gold Coast. Last year, he had a 5.88 ERA in 21 appearances. He was a starter. He started just 6 of the games, but he's mainly used as a bullpen guy, high leverage, because in 56 innings, mainly out of the bullpen, he struck out a lot of guys. Like he struck out 79 dudes in 56 innings. This year, they made him a starter. And he ended up having a 2.72 ERA. This is at Cumberland's in the Independent Association, the NAIA. Started all 14 games, 82 innings. He had 127 strikeouts in 82 innings. 127 in 82. He was mowing dudes down. It's around that 13 strikeout per 9 inning rate. Really cool to see Kalen Hampson from the Gold Coast get drafted as well, because he wasn't even on draft boards 2 years ago. And now he gets selected in the 8th round and he goes to the Baltimore Orioles. Gives Australia 28 professional players in the minor league system and 38 overall around the world, because another guy, Mitch Evans, a 17-year-old, signed with the Detroit Tigers over the weekend. And that's what I got to be part of. I got to go to Mitch Evans signings day, got to coordinate some media for him. And that was a really cool experience to see like 50 people there to see this 17-year-old kid live out his baseball dream by signing with the Detroit Tigers. So another Australian joins the ranks. And interesting to hear about when guys knew and when scouts knew when a guy was good. So draft was heavily on my mind because I was also talking to scouts and talking to people about why they signed these Aussie players. So yeah, 3 Aussies joined the professional ranks in the last 4 days, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think we're going to start to see more and more of that. Like, I mean, the proof's going to be in the pudding with Bazzana, right? Whenever he does get to the big leagues, to see how he actually performs with with that target on his back. But I mean, we predicted this last year. Whenever Travis went first overall, and I mean, he's hurt now, which is tough because he was having actually a decent minor league season. But I think Australia was already on the map per se, but with Bazzana having such a high profile and getting picked first overall, and then now a guy like Irondale, who all of a sudden I mean he also wasn't on anybody's radar a couple of years ago. All of a sudden ends up in Arkansas, and then he's going in the sixth round. So it'll be. I think it's an exciting time for Australian baseball, and I think it's an exciting time for Australian baseball fans, particularly because I think we'll start to see some of these guys trickle back through the ABL in the coming years, which means you get to see these guys play college baseball, you get to see them on this professional path in the minors, and then you get to see them at a ballpark in Australia. And the more guys in that league that are Australian, that are hurtling toward a potential spot on a big league team, it's just going to make that league stronger as well.
Some more international headlines I liked relates to another Australian, like you're talking to. Jared Dale is playing minor league baseball in Japan right now. He was signed by the San Diego Padres, said spent about 7 years in that organization, made it as high as AAA, only a couple games in AAA. But among all players in the level below the NPB in the minor leagues with the Oryx Buffaloes in Japan, Jared Dale ranks third among all players in batting average with a 330 mark among players who have at least 100 plate appearances. So it's kind of cool to see Jared Dale succeed overseas in Japan as well. And the other international story I had for you also relates to Japan, because Marek Chlup, the Czech star that we talked to Mike Clare about on one of our first episodes back in March, he got called up to the Tokyo Giants and he made his NPB debut with the Tokyo Giants. So now we're seeing Aussie arms in Korea, Czech bats in Japan. These little guy countries are now making an impact in some way, or at least starting to have more of a presence in some of these major leagues around the world. Pretty cool for the Czech Republic associations as well.
Well, Mark Sloop, I mean, I'm in the middle of nowhere, Ireland here, standing up, holding a microphone, so you may have to fact check me on this. But that's a good way of bringing this conversation back around. It's not for a major league team. It's for a team in Japan. But he was a college guy as well. He played his college baseball in the United States. I want to say it was at like an ACC school somewhere. I can't remember exactly where he went, Maryland or someplace like that. But he was, I don't remember if he got drafted, if he spent any time in the minor leagues. This is why you need fingers whenever you're podcasting and I'm standing up in a bedroom at a cottage in County Mayo. But he's the type of guy that if he doesn't have that opportunity, maybe if he gets selected as a 17-year-old and goes and plays rookie ball, maybe he gives up on the game of baseball. But because he took the college route and then kind of had this strange path that, intertwined with Premier 12 tournaments and a WBC, the ascendancy of, that Czech team in general, really becoming one of the top teams in Europe. It's a cool way to kind of bookend what we were talking about, with the MLB draft, even though it's not Major League Baseball. I think the concept still it applies to other leagues, right? There's these guys that, and he's got American ties. Either his mother or his father's American. So, I mean, that's obviously why he went to school in the United States. I think he grew up in the U.S. But having that ability to go, hey, I can go to college. I can do this. I can take some other paths. He's been so, integral in helping grow that program. And now this is going to grow his profile. And we all know what happens when dudes go back and play for their countries in Japan after having played baseball for a club team in Japan. It's almost like that nation becomes Japan's second team. So the next time, the Czech Republic potentially find themselves at the Tokyo Dome playing somebody in an international event, and Marek Sloop is on that team, they may have 50,000 of their closest Japanese neighbors cheering them on.
And same with Jared Dale when he steps up to bat for Australia. And both of them are in that group at the WBC, which will be cool. The last international story I have for you is one of jealousy.
Did you see where Mark Sloop went to college? I didn't make that up, did I?
I think he went to college. Let's check. We can just look that up. Yeah, he went to North Carolina State.
North Carolina State. Look, I knew it was in the ACC. I was close.
You were very close. He had some good years there, and then went to North Grinville, played some college ball there as well. Hit 344 in the NCAA, so he's no slouch, Schloop. Then the other one I've got for you, though, is, like I said, a story of jealousy, and another Australian link to this. Liam Spence. He plays in Adelaide. I've got to know Liam Spence and his brother a little bit over the last, tiny bit. He played at Fenway Park over the weekend, and that's not why I'm jealous. Fenway's Fenway. It's only one of the most iconic baseball stadiums in the world. Sold out stadium. They had above capacity crowd, largest crowd at Fenway for an event, including the Boston Red Sox in a long time, because it was banana ball, which is your favorite sport. And the way that he got to play banana ball, I'm also not jealous about that. What I am jealous for is that he got to hug my first favorite athlete, the one I still have his name on the back of jerseys, even though this team has more stars now. And that is Doug Flutie. So I don't know if you saw this, but Doug Flutie, who's a Boston legend, but he won Grey Cups in Toronto, played for the Buffalo Bills, one of the most iconic players. He's a short little guy who did a lot of cool things. He went out to throw the ceremonial first pitch, right? And then as he was standing out there, he called the leadoff hitter, who was Liam Spence, out to face a pitch, which is kind of funny, right? Entertainment thing. So he throws a pitch with just a guy standing at the plate, makes it look cool. And he says, "Nah, give me the ball back. Give me the ball back." And then he ends up having a full at bat instead of a ceremonial first pitch versus Liam Spence at Fenway. It turns into an 8-pitch at bat where he was throwing some off speed. Liam Spence was fouling some away, and he eventually got the out in one of the coolest ceremonial first pitch. But I messaged Liam about this. I was like, dude, I'm so jealous of you right now. And again, it wasn't because he was playing professional baseball, wasn't because he was playing at Fenway Park, wasn't because he was doing what he loves the most and having so much fun and living his dream and playing in front of 35,000 people. It's because after that first pitch, Doug Flutie walked up to Liam Spence and gave him a hug. And that's all I wanted, was a Doug Flutie hug.
Look, I probably could have guessed that Doug Flutie was your top most favorite athlete of all time. But how do you rate his acting ability in the movie Second String, that I believe was like a made-for-TNT film in the 90s?
It's great. He's great. He's good at everything he does. He's a good punter as well. No, but dude, seriously, I'm obviously a diehard Bills fan, and the jersey I wear could have Josh Allen, who's the MVP of the league right now, and everybody seems to love Josh Allen. I've still got a Doug Flutie jersey that I just wear only, and I got a new Doug Flutie jersey ordered. It was like, nah, give me Flutie. So, yeah, I love Doug Flutie.
Have you seen the movie Second String as a Bills fan? Surely you have, right?
No, I haven't seen Second String.
Let's add it to the list. I won't give too much away, but essentially the Bills are having a good season. And I think it's a certain shellfish essentially knocks out the entire first string offense. And look, they've got to pull together a ragtag group of guys for the playoffs. John Voight's the coach. Doug Flutie's in it. He's kind of an asshole because he's, clearly can't play, so isn't fond of his backup quarterback. Look, it's not a great movie, but as a Bills fan, if you got some time to waste, I think you should watch it.
I have some homework to do before we speak next. I'll get on it.
Well, the next time that I join you, I will be making my way to Taiwan. I will head to Kaohsiung sort of toward the end of this week and head then to Tainan for...
Yeah, when do you leave?
I don't say this tongue-in-cheek. For probably my favorite baseball tournament of the biannual... I always get biannual mixed up. Is that twice a year or once every 2 years? I think it actually means the same thing, which... the English language has something to answer for. It's the U12 Baseball World Cup. I first did it back in 2017, and I didn't know what to expect. And in that event, they played it at the old Tainan Municipal Stadium, which is where the Uni Lions used to play. I think the Uni Lions still play there, but are moving to a new facility potentially next year at the back end of this year. But they built a brand new purpose-built facility just outside Tainan for this tournament, which I got to go through for the first time then in 2019. And I kid you not when I tell you it rivals any of those WBC Premier 12 Asian environments that you've ever been to, because the stadium is much smaller. So it doesn't take as many people to make it loud. I think it seats about 15,000 people. And every time Chinese Taipei play, it'll be completely full. So this is a tournament that I really get hyped up about and I really get chills about. And it's a hard tournament to broadcast as well without going too inside baseball because you don't have any knowledge on these kids, right? So what happens from day 1 to day 10 of this tournament is amazing because you see, kids getting to have that sort of international experience for the first time in their life, traveling internationally, playing, a true travel ball type of experience, but you really get to follow their own journeys. So you may see a kid pitch on day 2 who then has to pitch in a semifinal later on in the tournament, and to watch his progression and be able to tell that story. It's something really cool. And then, to see these guys pop up on draft boards 7, 8 years later, whenever you saw them play as a 12-year-old in Tainan, Taiwan, it's incredible, man. So I don't take the privilege lightly. It's not one of the tournaments that you go to and you say, well, it's under 12s. Let's just sort of go and have fun and call it for the kids. I think there truly is a compelling aspect to it. And I think, and you understand this as a broadcaster, there's a story to tell and we have a responsibility to do that. But man, it is a challenge. It is a hoot. It is exhilarating. It is exhausting. It is all of those things in one. And I just can't wait to put the headset back on, man. But I love this tournament so much, and I am jazzed that they're going to have me back.
And it's worth world ranking points as well, like for the senior national team, which
seems crazy, right?
Insane. But if you want some information, I know you wanted to say you're struggling to find some research. If only there was a National Baseball Association and media guy who put together a guide that has who the players are, what positions they play, a quote from the coach about each of them, some stats, some highlights, some moments that they've had over the last bit, and has also gone through the process of having a little media guide because he's got all the players to fill out a form with some of their favorite baseball moments going out. If only there was a country in the world that did that, they might be able to help you out. But unfortunately, it just doesn't exist. Maybe it exists. I don't know. But you'll have to make friends with that person, whoever it is.
That is a very, 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 very thinly veiled pat on the back. Eric Boulder patting himself on the back. Yeah, you started last week by talking in third person, and you end this week by giving yourself the most thinly veiled kudos that I've ever heard in my life. I will get that off you in the next week, and man, I'm looking forward to chatting again.
When do you leave?
Looking forward to getting back with Spoon next week. I'll take off from here on Sunday. I actually head back to Australia for a night before I then go up to Kaohsiung.
So are we going to talk to you in Australia? Are you on Monday? Are you going to be back in Australia on Monday?
Travel plans permitting, yes. I mean, look, I think I've been in a different location the last 6 times you've spoken to me, so let's not stop that bit just yet.
Well, Monday night it is. Let's make it a date.
Can't wait.
Catch you soon.